Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Realtree, Hoyt Archery, Muddy Outdoors, Fuse Accessories, Frigid Forage, Trophy Rock, Scentmaster, Cabela's, Rocket Broadheads, TrailCamPro.com, Bloodsport Arrows, Redneck Hunting Blinds, ScentLock, Woods Zero Turn Mowers, Scott Archery, Yeti Coolers, and Nikon.
Welcome to Midwest Whitetail. Today's the 21st of December, and it's the final weekend of the second shotgun season. In this episode, I'm going to take you back over the 3 weekends. The first shotgun season here in Iowa, the opening weekend of the second shotgun season. We'll wrap up this episode with this evening's hunt. But first, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, and I would invite you to join Pastor Paul with the Christmas special that he does for us. He does the Without Excuse Ministries devotionals, and every 2 weeks he puts up a new episode on the Midwest Whitetail site. And we really love the Christmas season. This is the time of year when we celebrate the birth of Christ, and that's a really special time for us. So I would invite you to watch the Christmas special. And now let's talk about what's been going on here over the past 2 weekends and bring you up to date on where we're going this evening. We started out on the 7th of December, and it was Drew's first hunt. In fact, it was in the spot that we're going back to this evening. There was a number of bucks there back in September and October, and I've talked about those quite a bit already this fall. And there were some older deer there. None of them had particularly big antlers, and those were our target animals. And the first night in there, Drew had one of these older deer. If you put your thumb over the deer's antlers and just look at his body, you'd say that he's probably a 4.5-year-old buck. But if you put your hand over the deer's body and just look at the antlers, you'd say that he's probably just a 1.5-year-old buck. So he's got really small antlers for his age. So it's the perfect deer to remove. You know, we don't need him on the property for any reason. All he does is eat food that other deer could eat, and his dominance in that area potentially might keep younger bucks with better antlers from moving in and taking over there. So that was one that we really wanted to get out. Drew had that deer come by. Actually, he came in from the right, and it took a little while before I realized this is one of the deer that I wanted to get out of that area. By the time I figured it out, he was already angling straight away from us. And he walked out to about 50 yards, turned broadside. Drew cocked the hammer, got all ready, pulled the trigger, and all I heard was just a thump.
Oh, what? Oh, dang it, my finger was in the way.
The hammer hit his glove. His finger had gotten in front of the spot where the hammer comes down on the firing pin, so he never got enough impact between the hammer and the firing pin to drive it forward into the primer. So before he could get readjusted and get back on the buck, he turned and started angling straight away from us again. Finally got way out there at probably about 80 yards or so, turned broadside right towards the end of legal shooting time. He took the shot. The deer reacted by running towards us and looking back in the direction where where he'd been standing.
What the heck? Is it sighted wrong or something? I did everything right.
So the next day I took the gun out and shot it a few times, and it was about 5 inches low at 50 yards. So, at 80 yards or so, it was probably 6 or 8 inches low, which is unfortunate. It spared that buck that evening. The next day we went to another spot where we had another redneck blind out. And those are really nice for this time of the year because we can get in there and relax and have snacks and have fun, get the little heater going. It's a pretty nice time. But all we saw that evening was a bunch of antlerless deer. Real pretty night though. Snow was coming down. It was just neat to hunt under those conditions. So that took us through the first weekend. One opportunity, one buck got away. The second weekend, Jordan went out with me. We went to a great big soybean field, a big bottom field. I expected to see a lot of activity there. I thought with a lot of timber in that area that the deer would be really piling into that field. It was really cold, perfect conditions for a lot of late season feeding. Well, as it turned out, we didn't really see that many deer. I think we might have seen a total of about 12 deer. one small buck early, and then right towards the end, about 20 minutes before the end of legal shooting time, there was looked like about a 4-year-old 6-pointer came out. So it's another really small, racked, older buck, and he was coming past us on the right, and there might have been a way where Jordan could have opened up the side window and gotten a shot out through that side of the blind, but I wouldn't have been able to film it. So I told her just to wait, let the deer work his way out in front of the blind, and then we had plenty of time, no problem. It was going to be a lot nicer footage and an easier shot for her. Well, unfortunately, something spooked some deer on the other end of the field, and they ran our way, and then the buck and the does that he was following, feeding out into the field, they all took off and went back into the timber too. So that blew our opportunity there. The next evening, which would have been, what would that have been, the 15th of December, we came back to this spot, the spot where Drew went on the 7th. And there's an 8-pointer here, and hopefully we'll get a chance at him tonight, because that's where we're at tonight. But there's an 8-pointer there that we've been after all season. A real pretty, nice, clean, good-looking 8-pointer. And he came out on the far end of the field right at last light, probably about 15 minutes before the end of legal shooting time. He was with that same buck that Drew shot at and missed. So now we got both of those older, mature bucks at the far end of the field. Unfortunately, the wind had switched on us during the hunt, and it was blowing perfectly right straight in their direction. And so we had 4 hunts now, and we've had 3 opportunities on mature bucks. So that brings us up to where we're at now. We're heading back to that same spot again. And I guess the real key to what we're doing is just focusing on the food sources, trying to keep the pressure down on these areas as much as we can. Tonight we've got a wind coming right out of the north. We're going back in here about 300 yards or so to that same redneck blind in that line of cedars. And as this evening plays itself out, we'll go ahead and bring it to you on today's episode. And the next time we check in, we're going to be in the blind, bringing you an update from the action there. We've been in the blind now for about 45 minutes, and there's 2 does out in front of us, and I think there's 4 or 5 antlerless deer behind us in that food plot on that side. There's supposed to be a big storm, 5 to 8 inches of snow accumulation tonight rolling in, and I'm sure the deer are feeding early with that storm coming. We saw deer out at noon when we were coming back home from town earlier, so I'm not surprised that they're out early. We're going to have to get some windows opened up here pretty soon. We've been trying to keep them closed in order to keep it warm in here so we can keep these windows from freezing up. Try to get the windows to thaw off. I think we've got that done, so as soon as these fawns get far enough away, we're going to pout this front window. Then we'll be ready for anything that might come out on that side. Made it back to the truck, and right at the last light there were a bunch of deer that came out. I guess there was probably about, I don't even know how many does, probably 6 or 7 does. And then after the end of legal shooting time, that same buck that Drew shot at a couple of weeks ago, he popped out on the far end of the food plot too, but it was just too late. He's starting to get under my skin. I really want to see that deer in the back of the truck before this season is over. He's definitely not trophy antlered, but as far as just being annoying and getting away, he's turning into a trophy in that sense. So if we could kill that deer, I think I'd feel pretty excited about it. It might be a project for us before the end of the season. We've got one more evening now of the firearm season. So either Jordan or Drew's going to go out tomorrow, and we're supposed to have a big snowstorm blow through tonight. So I'm not sure what tomorrow's going to look like, but we're definitely going to be in a blind someplace. And then we'll wrap it up after that. Well, the kids didn't go hunting this evening. We had this fresh snow that came in last night, and they wanted to play in the backyard in the snow. So this is gonna be my second official sign out. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail. Remember to always dream big.
Thanks for watching Midwest Whitetail. Merry Christmas!